sometimes forget that people who watch this channel aren't all, vastly experienced. Some of them are new, and that's the case today. I got an email from Jerry. He and his son Chris bought a Muse 3D recently, and they have it up and running now. We've been exchanging emails for a few weeks as they're getting going. But they now have it up and running, but they've run into this problem. So I thought it was a good opportunity to fire up a quick video to show you what problem they're actually hitting and what it means and how to fix it. So let's get started. How's it going, everybody? Steve here, and welcome back to my workshop. Now, as I mentioned, Jerry and his son Chris have come up with this design for a phone stand, and they want to cut it out of MDF. Now, MDF, if you don't know, is basically created with a process of compressed sawdust and glue, and it's actually fairly tough stuff to cut, so we have to pay a little more attention to the settings here. And honestly, this problem is most likely settings. The only other thing it could be is not enough output out of the laser, but that's probably unlikely here. So what I wanted to do is kind of walk through these settings and how to find that balance. Now, I did create a couple of material videos in the past, and I'll put some links at the end of this video that you can go watch, which maybe will help you out here. But in the case of MDF, we have some special work to do because it is so hard to cut. So we have to be a little more precise with the settings. Now, the good news is there's really only a couple of levers we can pull here. There's certainly power, or in the case of the Retina Engrave 3, there's power and current. And the second one is speed, and that's the speed of the laser working across the material. So the successful path is the one where you find the best balance of both of those. And that sadly, if you're just getting started out, will vary from material to material. Even from laser to laser. So you can't assume that if I give you settings, they're going to work on your laser. They may work, most likely they will, but sometimes you'll run into some problems. Anyway, let's get started here. I'll walk you through some of the Retina Engrave 3 settings, and then I'll show you what I do to fix that problem. So let's get going. All right, so anytime you get stuck on a material like this, where no matter what you do, you can't seem to cut through it, the first instinct you should have is to make some kind of a test. And what I did, this is actually the Retina Engrave 3 simulator, but what I did was I created just a test file, and I'll make this available because it's really just a bunch of squares, as you can see. And if I expand out the layers here, you'll see there's a layer for the text itself. There's a layer for the first row, the second row, and the third row. And if you look over on the right-hand side here, you can see that for each of these colors, they're all colored particular color. For each of those colors, I've set the speed. So yellow is 16%, purple is 18%, and so on. And what I'll do is I'll engrave this rectangle out and see what actually gets cut. Now, the reason there's the passes on the vertical here is because you will get to material, and MDF is a good example where no matter what you do as far as power goes, you're at 100% power, 100% current on a Muse, and you've slowed the laser rate down and it's still not cutting through. That's when you would normally say, well, instead of going slow, because going slow will really just char the surface of the material quite often. So what you may want to do is go a little faster. So here I've started at 16%. So you may want to speed up, but then do multiple passes. And if you look over on the side here, right now, all of the colors, they're all currently set to one pass. Now, there's a couple of ways you could do this. You could say, I just want to do the labels first, and I'm going to disable these alternate rows so you can print the labels. And then I'm going to turn the labels off because I don't want to engrave them twice. And I'll turn on the first row and engrave it. And then I'll turn that one off, and I'll turn on the second row and just do this job twice to effectively get two pass. And same with the third one. Or you could say the first pass I'm going to do here, I'm going to do all of them. So I'll do everything once. And then for the second pass, and again, we're not moving the material in the laser, we're keeping everything the same. I'll turn off the first row and I'll do another pass on these. And then for the third pass, I'll turn off the second row and the first row, and I'll just do that third row, and that'll be the third pass for that one. You can do it that way. This is basically working around a bit of a limitation in RE3. Does drive me kind of crazy because in Lightburn it's so easy to just say I can set the power for each color, and then for this row I can say I can do additional attributes. So this is 1 pass, this is 2 pass, and so on. So we're working around a bit of a limitation, but it's one way to do it with the Muse. Once you figure this out, though, you don't have to do any craziness. You can just say, oh, it cuts best with 22% speed and 2 passes, and you can just set that in your settings over on the right here, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. So we're only doing this kind of multi-pass thing just for this test. So that's a kind of a lengthy explanation for what's happening here. I'll run this test and then I'll show you what we get as a result. So now if I look at the output here, this is MDF core plywood, but it's real cherry, finished cherry on the outside on both sides. So it's pretty tough stuff as well. And you can see when I ran the test, none of the single pass on this particular, at this particular speed cut through. Now, if I did go down to maybe 8% or 5% even, it would eventually cut through on this material, but it would be so burnt on the outside. You can actually see it's burnt more there than it is up at this end. So so the single pass is really not your solution. So on the 2 pass, you can see some of them actually cut if we're going slow, but with 3 passes they all cut, and we could probably actually even go faster. Normally you would put speeds up here until you no longer can cut through. So we probably could have done a 28 as well, and maybe even a 30, and we probably might have still gotten through. But this gives you the idea of how to build a test and run it and see what happens. And for Jerry and his son Chris, you might want to do this with your MDF material. So now be warned, MDF is very hard stuff. So I actually have a piece here, and there's just no way that you're going to cut effectively through this material with a 40-watt laser. This stuff is so dense, and this is Home Depot hardware store kind of MDF. So it probably has some fairly unpleasant glues in it that make it very difficult to cut. But anyway, this material is actually designed for laser cutting, so a 40-watt laser can kind of grunt its way through, but you will have to do one of these tests. Anyway, that'll give you an idea what you have to do. So there you go. That should give you a little insight. Anytime you get stuck, like I said, make a test like this. And you use reasonable values. You may be wrong when you start, and you can change them as you go. As I said, I'll upload both the Retina Engrave 3 project as well as the SVG file in case you want to make some changes, and give this a try. And for Jerry and Chris, try this out. Let me know how it works. Now, fair warning, MDF, as I've mentioned numerous times in this video, is really, really hard stuff. So don't be surprised if you can't cut it at all with a 45 watt laser. That hardware store material that I showed you, that is really, really tough stuff to cut with a 40 watt laser. My 90 watt laser can chisel through it fairly easily, but it's the difference power makes. Anyway, hopefully you got something out of this video. If not, stick around and we'll keep trying. If you do have questions like this, feel free to shoot me an email. These things are usually good for inspiring, new videos to help you and other people. So feel free to do that. And get out there and make your world, and I'll see you next time.